They're doing acting. That's all the acting that they're doing is reading out numbers to be dramatic. It's terrible.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the ugvm podcast. I'm your host Andy Kavanagh, but you can call me deKay, and with me today are Zoe. Hello Zoe.
Seasonal greetings.
And Kendrick.
How you doing?
And welcome to 2018, everyone.
Oh, feels a lot like the last year, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a lot like 2017, only there's no sunshine and my wheelie bin blew away. So
my fence fell down.
Yeah.
And apparently it's really expensive to have a fence re-erected, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, we found that a few years ago. But worse than that, we were going to be joined by Niaz, only unfortunately a tree fell on his house, so that's not happening. So I think he's okay. I don't think it's quite as bad as it sounds, but obviously he's got better things to be doing this evening, so we'll make do without him, I think. So, a couple of things I'd like to mention first, as they're relatively recent, and one of them is Nintendo's Direct Mini, and also yesterday's Switch-related announcement. So the Direct Mini is basically a load of new games, ports, and DLC. So in no particular order, I don't think they're in the order that they were shown anyway. There's a port of the 3DS, not even 3DS, it's original DS, isn't it? The World Ends With You.
No, I believe it was a 3DS game.
Is it 3DS? Okay.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so The World Ends With You, a role-playing game with some bizarre second screen mechanic.
I can get into that a little bit if you like. I did buy a copy. The idea is that there is real-time combat happening in the screen below, which you control with the traditional D-pad and action buttons. And then the combat happening in the screen above, you influence with the shoulder buttons.
Okay.
It sounds more interesting than it actually is. It's essentially you're playing Dragon Quest on one screen and Pong on the other one. So it didn't work out as well as I think they were hoping. I'm not sure what they plan on doing with the Switch port, apart from just either throwing it all on one screen or just doing away with the second screen entirely, because it didn't really add much to the game.
Okay, they didn't show an awful lot of it, so I don't know. But
just to throw out a correction in case our listener decides to correct, it is a 3D. No, it is an original DS game.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit older than it seemed. So then, to go alongside with the announcement for the remastered version of Dark Souls on the PS4 and the Xbox One, it's also coming to the Switch. Not really.
I'm sure some people will be very excited about that.
I'm sure they were, yeah, but not really my thing. Tried it.
Nor mine.
No, it's too hard.
I love the Souls games.
Yeah.
But Dark Souls itself is not the one I would have ported to Switch. I was rather hoping that they would have found their way out of the Sony exclusivity agreement and ported the original Demon's Souls, because there's a lot to love in that very first game that actually started the series.
Yeah.
But I think that Sony has a lock on it, and it's never ever going to be released on PC or on any other platform. So, but still, hey, Dark Souls handheld, I'm on board. Sign me up. I can't wait to see how the multiplayer is going to work.
From announced, was it a week or two ago that they're actually shutting down the multiplayer component for Demon's Souls in about 6 months' time.
Oh right. Okay.
So if they made a port, they'd have to leave that on indefinitely, and they probably don't want to.
Or they could spin up another instance of it that would accommodate other platforms. But we're speculating in a vacuum at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Slightly controversial, maybe, is SNK Heroines, which seems to be a kind of a sequel or an updated version of is it Gals Fighters for the Neo Geo Pocket?
I remember that game.
Yeah, so it's a similar kind of thing. Tag team, only SNK female characters.
Is it just King of Fighters with all of the guys taken out?
Pretty much.
Well, as I understand it, the gameplay mechanisms are also simplified, and it's very, very easy to do the super moves. So it's not just an insultingly sexist SNK fighting game. It's also an insultingly infantilized SNK fighting game. But we'll see what it looks like when it's actually released. I'm just happy that something they announced was a new game as opposed to a port.
Well, that's true. Although also a new game was Mario Tennis Aces, although the sequel kind of really. But apparently they're big on the story mode in this. It wasn't that great, the last Mario Tennis game. There wasn't much of a story mode, but
there was nothing, was there? I saw everything there was to see in less than an hour, comfortably.
Yeah.
It was like, had 2 exhibitions that were about 10 minutes each, and then that was kind of it. So I'm up for this.
Yeah, good. Payday 2, which has been out forever on other platforms, has it not? But that's coming to the Switch as well. So
who asked for that?
I don't know, but they did actually announce it before the Switch came out. So it's not a new thing. It's just they've now got a date, I think, or a rough date. It's some point in spring, maybe. Yeah, so there's that. And then you'll be the one who knows how to pronounce this correctly, but I'll give it a go. Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana?
I believe you have it.
Ah, yes.
And it's the worst name for a video game I have ever heard.
It tells you everything you need to know about the game, though, doesn't it?
It tells you nothing about anything.
It's an Ys game. They all have the same plot. Adol shipwrecks, wakes up with amnesia, has to do JRPG things, and anyway. This game is controversial because it was previously released on, I believe, PlayStation 4 and Vita, and then it was going to be released on PC, but the translation was broken and it was filled with all kinds of game-breaking bugs. So they withheld the PC version, and they've been trying to get patches out for the other 2. So I have my doubts about whether or not the Switch release is going to happen as scheduled or as intended.
I don't think there was a date on that either. I think all of these things that were announced, they're expecting to be in the first 4 or 5 months of the year, I think. So, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see for that. And then something else that was announced previously, although I don't know if they actually had the full title of it, is Kirby Star Allies.
Is this the one that was announced at E3 and was just called Kirby?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not that top-down one that's already out in Japan that's getting scathing reviews.
No, that's
I forget the name of.
That's the 3DS one, Battle Royale.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically
PUBG with
top-down
Kirby?
Smash Brothers, I think.
You know how some games have sister releases like Pokemon Red and Blue or the Mega Man games? I wonder if there'll be a Kirby Star Axis.
Yeah, what with swastikas and everything.
Maybe not.
No, maybe. So there's that. And also, this is the game which actually tipped everybody off that there was going to be a Nintendo Direct around about the time there was a Nintendo Direct. Is it Fee or Faye? I'm assuming Fee.
I think it's Faye. Is this the EA one?
Yes.
All I remember is they showed it off at E3 last year, and it was kind of taken as it's their token cute indie game because Unravel's already out now, so they need a new one. And I kind of forgot everything else about it.
Forgive me. FE is the periodic table of element abbreviation for iron.
It is.
So
yes.
is the name of the game not intended to be iron, or am I getting that wrong?
Judging from the video, there doesn't seem to be anything to do with iron on there at all. But I could be wrong. It could be very clever.
I could be over-interpreting and assigning academic intent where there is none.
Yeah, maybe the hiragana for fee might be some relevance, perhaps. I don't know. So there's that, and then there are a few Wii U remasters, ports, direct conversions. One of them is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which in itself was already a port on the Wii U from the 3DS, I believe. Or I got that the wrong way around.
No, the 3DS one was a port of the Wii one, Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Oh, you're right,
yes. Tropical Freeze was a new one
sequel,
for Wii U, which I've owned for 4 years, and so obviously it's still in its seal.
Yeah. I think I managed to resist buying it because I think that would have happened to me as well, so I didn't. And I probably won't do it again, to be honest. I didn't really like the 3DS one, so...
I really liked the 3DS one until I got to the minecart level, and it was just far too hard for me.
Yeah, there was the barrel one as well, wasn't there? The kind of rocket barrel levels, they were a bit hard too.
It was beyond my limited abilities.
Were those challenges partly dependent on use of the 3D feature? Were they into and out of the screen in the Z-axis?
No, because it was a straight port of a Wii game.
Yeah, it did make use of the 3D, but it wasn't necessary.
Okay.
No, in actual fact, I played most of that while I was stuck on a train, and so while I was on the train, I had the 3D turned off. So yeah, I managed it without it. So, so as well as that, there is the best game that's been released in the last 20 years, probably, maybe longer, is Hyrule Warriors, the definitive edition, which comes with all the characters and DLC from both the Wii U version and the 3DS version, which do have separate game modes and separate characters and separate levels. So that'd be quite good to have them all together, especially seeing as the 3DS version was only one player, and the best thing about Hyrule Warriors is playing it two player. So and this will be two player again. So
that would be couch co-op with two players in front of the same system. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any online play, but yeah, that's how I played through nearly 300 hours probably of the Wii U version. So that can
not sure
again.
how Hyrule Warriors is going to work with the Joy-Cons. That'll be interesting to see.
It's quite simple, really, because I mean, it was my daughter that played as the second character, and she didn't make use of the second stick at all. And it's only really for camera that you need the second stick, so it's quite easily playable without moving the camera around, really.
All right.
So it will work. But
so
then I've got two lots of controllers anyway. So
just to be clear on this, you aren't that big on Dynasty Warriors, and you don't like 3D Zelda, and Hyrule Warriors is the best game of the last 25 years.
Absolutely. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that.
deKay measures value in non-Euclidean numbers.
Absolutely.
He certainly does.
Yeah, there's a wormhole there somewhere. So that was all it for the new full games or repeated full games. But they also announced some new content for Mario Odyssey, which is some balloon hiding mode featuring Luigi by the looks of it, which might be fun until everybody's realised where the best places to hide all the balloons are, and then it's a bit pointless. Then there is another extra story mode, including Donkey Kong in Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and then some more characters and some more trainers and bits and pieces for Pokken Tournament. So that was it. I mean, there's quite a lot of games they managed to squeeze into what was only about 12 minutes, I think. So, and all of these things are coming in the next 4 or 5 months, apparently. So that's something. Although everybody obviously then decided to complain that, is this all we're getting this year? We're not getting anything. But where's Metroid, and where's a 2D Mario game? And but that's what the internet is. So.
Well, I suspect that Nintendo has much more planned, but that they're not overreaching. They've been burned before on announcing things that were supposed to happen and then never did. The entire Wii U announced library, basically. So I suspect that they're trying to give us more than we expect, as opposed to promising more than they can deliver.
Well, absolutely. And then, of course, the announcement yesterday pretty much blindsided everyone, which is the Nintendo Labo, which I'm assuming it's Labo rather than Labo.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Already there's the dirty mispronunciation that I'll just cheerfully ignore for now. But
I think we all know what that is, but yes.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you have both seen the video and what this thing actually is.
Oh,
yes.
I read up on it this morning and I was confused, so I thought I'd watch the trailer before I came on tonight. So I watched that about an hour ago, and having watched it, I'm still lost.
Okay.
As to it's series of pieces of cardboard that you can fold around your Switch in a variety of ways to make it look like stuff that then makes stuff happen. And I don't know, I'm confused.
That's right.
As I understand it, the Joy-Cons have additional sensors and have a sensitivity in their motion sensing to the point where they can tell what key of the cardboard piano is being pressed, and their vibration can be precisely controlled to the point where they can cause the little robot bug thing to move forwards or backwards, depending on how they're vibrating. Yeah. And then that's to say nothing of the actual button actuators and I believe they're thread actuators that are part of some of the cardboard construction.
Well, I don't really know how some of the things that you do actually activate the stuff in the Joy-Con, but it must be a combination of bits of cardboard or string pushing buttons or moving across sensors.
There's a bit in the release video, I believe, at about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, where we look inside the robot backpack, and you can see that there are 3 sliders that go up and down that are actually moving bits of the Joy-Con as you move your arms around.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of buttons being pressed as well as the motion sensor going off so that you can control the robot with the backpack thing.
Yeah.
It's quite clever.
Was-
I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
They were watching the bit of the video where the guy's got the backpack on and he's kind of stomping around, being the big robot thing. It reminded me an awful lot of a trailer on the Kinect reveal demo reel.
Oh right.
There was a game in there of somebody just kind of like stomping around in their living room, flailing their arms to swipe. And it just reminded me so much of that.
I believe you're thinking of the Steel Battalion Kinect game.
I don't think it was the Steel Battalion. I suspect it was a game that never came out because if you go back and you watch the Project Natal reveal video, at least 80% of the things on that never appeared.
Okay, so this would have been a concept that never coalesced into a real game.
Yeah, because they had a skateboarding game. Obviously, they had Milo and Kate, and various other things that never saw the light of day.
No, this is what Miyamoto's Project Giant Robot ended up as, isn't it? This a robot thing. I mean, I don't know whether that was intended from the start for that project, or whether that was just a use for it that they found later on. I don't know, but
I'll be very curious. I'm very intrigued to see if the tech works, because their last foray into motion controls absolutely didn't work like it should have done. But it's been proven since that if you do the tech right, then it does work. But every motion control-y tech I've seen that is completely accurate requires some kind of visual tracking on the controller, be that the Move or the Vive, because otherwise you're just kind of guessing a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'll be ordering that as soon as possible.
God.
Well, you get to report on how durable the cardboard is and how long it lasts in the hands of your typical British child.
Sure. Well, I actually have right next to me a Google Cardboard. So obviously there's not really any moving parts or anything, but the cardboard is surprisingly durable. So I'd imagine if it's made out of similar type of cardboard, it should be reasonably okay. They're fully expecting people to break them and to tear them and for them to get wet and stomped on and whatever. And they have said that the plans for these cardboard constructs, they're actually going to make freely downloadable. And they have said that you can make them out of whatever you want, really. It doesn't have to be cardboard. That's obviously just what they're providing. So it'll be entirely possible that somebody else, some other third parties, will come up with the same stuff in plastic, or just more replica cardboard stuff of the same things. I don't think the
Nintendo Labo aluminium.
Yes, of course. Yeah, they'll be the ones it'll be kickstarted, and maybe in 7-10 years' time it may come out, and nobody will care anymore. But yeah. But yeah, it seems interesting, and it's absolutely. I mean, looking at all the rumours of what was going to happen. I mean, I heard a rumour that Nintendo were working closely with Lego to create something, and there was something that was posted on 4chan, I think, originally, that was Lego-like bricks that you'd put together. Then you'd point the IR sensor that's in one of the Joy-Con at the bricks, and it would then create something on screen with those bricks, which sounded a bit bizarre but quite plausible. And apparently there is still a rumour that something between Nintendo and Lego is still happening, but this wasn't it.
There's precedent for that. There was a game on the Saturn that I wish I could remember the name of, where you could buy individual plastic robot parts. It was a bit like the Gundam models that you can get in the hobby shops. And the parts each had individual chips in them, so that when you put them together and then plug them into the sensor that went into the Saturn controller port, it would detect which parts you had and then build that robot for you that you could use in-game. It was ridiculously expensive. If you got a full set of it, of all the parts that you could have, it would run something on the order of £500-600 worth, I think. And obviously, it was not released outside of Japan. So there's precedent, but the more I think about it, the more I think that the precedent would cause them not to want to release anything in the West, because, well, there's a reason that they're doing this with cardboard expense. They're keeping the costs low and making adoption reasonable for everyone.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the price of this as well, but there's 2 packs that's been announced. There's the one with the giant robot, and there's one which is 4 or 5 separate different models. So it'll be the one that's the piano, and the one that's the TV, and there's the one that's the fishing controller and whatever, all in one pack. And they've not announced a UK price yet, but it's going to be $70 each, which seems a lot. But I mean, it's only that's only $10, $20 more than the game on its own usually.
I was going to say that seems like a reasonable price for a full game that happens to come with a lot of peripheral bits that you have to assemble.
Yeah.
Is how they would sell it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, some retailers will probably have that cheaper. And hopefully, once you buy the software, I would imagine additional packs will be, you would get some kind of downloadable update, and then you would get just more cardboard packs, which hopefully would be much cheaper. So, I'm assuming. Anyway. So that's an awful lot of Nintendo stuff. So is there anything else that anybody would like to talk about?
I had a few things that I wanted to bring up based on recent news. I don't know if anyone in the UK is paying attention to the Consumer Electronics Show here in America. Every winter, the US gets all of their manufacturers together in one place and, tries to, promote things. This year, the focus has been on autonomous automobiles, but there's always video games there. Mm-hmm. And the one news item that got my attention, there's a company called Retrobit. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They make PC controllers. And this year, this kind of caught me by surprise. They're making a number of USB and Bluetooth compatible controllers that look exactly like old Dreamcast, Saturn, and Mega Drive controllers. And not just that, but they're also reissuing video cables, composite and newly upgraded HDMI video cables, and original Mega Drive, Saturn, and Dreamcast controllers that will then be compatible also with Bluetooth transmitters and receivers that you can plug into the original game systems.
That sounds pretty good. So they're basically legitimizing the kind of stuff that 8-bit controllers do for Nintendo stuff. So
yes, and it's it's transparently obvious that a lot of this is going to be used for emulation purposes. But at the same time, anyone like me who has the original hardware lying around still, I would love to have a few more Dreamcast controllers because they're pretty fragile, and if they support VMU and Rumble Pack. They didn't call them the Rumble Packs. What did Sega call the
Jolt
vibration
pack,
system?
No, it was just the vibration pack.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, that's imaginative. Anyway, so obviously, there's no pricing and there's no dates associated with any of these announcements, so it could still all fall apart. But I'm cautiously optimistic.
It sounds good. I'd quite like to have some wireless controllers for my Mega Drive or my Dreamcast. I think if that becomes possible, that'd be quite good.
Sega did have a licensed first-party wireless controller for the Mega Drive.
They're infrared, though, weren't they?
Yes, they were IR. Useless. So you had to point the controller at the system and make sure you had line of sight. It was ridiculous. I still have 2 sets of them. Yeah,
I've got one somewhere, but no.
All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is Hokuto ga Gotoku. This just went up for pre-order in Japan, and if the gods are kind, there will also be a Western release of it. Are either of you familiar with the Fist of the North Star manga and anime?
I'm aware of it, yeah. I think I've seen some of it, actually, in a really bad dub back in the late 90s, I think. But
so what about you? Is this on your radar at all?
It's not. I've heard speak of Fist of the North Star, but I've heard the name in passing. That's my full knowledge.
Have you played the absolutely terrible Mega Drive game Last Battle?
That was just a one-on-one fighting game, wasn't it?
No. It was basically take Altered Beast, right? But take out all of the beasts and just have men.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like the worst game I've ever heard of.
Yeah, well, it was called Last Battle in the UK. I don't know about in the US, but it was basically a port of I don't know, a new region version of a Fist of the North Star game, I believe.
Well, this new game will be much more appealing to you, I think. If you're Sega and you've got this wonderful game engine that's being used for the Yakuza games, and someone came to you and said, hey, we should try applying this to other game worlds and other properties.
Well, like Shenmue.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So, they've gone one further. What they've done is they've reused a lot of the same fighting engine and a lot of the same voice actors. And so essentially what Hokuto ga Gotoku is it's Fist of the North Star. What it is Yakuza in an apocalyptic dystopia where every fight ends with the victor hitting the loser so hard that his skeleton flies out of his body.
Okay.
And it's like Mad Max. There's, vehicles and sprawling desert and all kinds of crafting and men running around in, shirts with no sleeves and lots of questionable survival tactics going on. And also, this was the thing in the preview video that sold most people on it. There is a bartending minigame.
That's the most important bit, yeah.
Yes, it is. So essentially, you have the voice actor for the protagonist from Yakuza saying, "Enjoy your drink," after doing all kinds of fighting moves in order to mix the drink. And I don't know in what context it fits into the game. I don't know if it's even part of the plot of the original manga, but it's another Yakuza game in all but name. So I must have it, and I'm begging Sega to release it in the West, to localize it, because we have to have it.
I've just done some research on Last Battle because I'd never heard of it, and it was called Last Battle in the US and Europe, and in Japan, I apologize profusely for what I'm about to say. It was called Shin Saikamatsu Kei Seishu Densetsu : Hokuto no Ken, which literally translates as Fist of the North Star, the new legend of the post-apocalyptic messiah, which is a fantastic name for a game. And Mega Magazine ranked it as number 2 in their list of the worst Mega Drive games of all time.
Yeah,
well, then
that's not surprising.
That's a property that was ripe for a reimagined game adaptation. Then it's time. It was due. And anyway, that's all the recent news I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
I've got one bit of breaking news,
okay,
which is very exciting if you're me. And not for anybody else. Square Enix have just announced they're releasing a physical limited edition of Life is Strange Before the Storm, which comes with cute little figurines of Chloe and Rachel and a vinyl soundtrack and an art book and loads of crap. And that's going to cost me $60 for a game I've already got. There you go.
Well, that's
is
good.
it actually? I'm sorry. Is it actually a game on the disc, or is it a box full of tchotchkes with a download code?
I believe it's a game on the disc. The last one was.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. I have the physical version of the original Life is Strange, and they did actually put the game on the disc.
I got quite excited the other day because I turned my PS4 on and it told me that there was an update for Before the Storm. So I thought, that'll be it. That'll be the bonus episode. But no.
No. The bonus episode is out on the 6th of March.
That's a bit of a wait.
It is.
Blimey, it's not supposed to be very long either, is it? The actual episode itself.
I don't know.
I think they said it was shorter than these 3. Although, did you know that we're going completely off track now? But the three episodes of Before the Storm all seem to be substantially longer than any of the 5 episodes in the first game. Or is it just me playing slowly?
Sure. It might have just been you playing slowly. I mean, the last one was quite long, but I think that episode 4 of the original is the one that took me the longest. That's the only one that took me over 3 hours.
Because I think I did all of the others in about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and all 3 of these took about 2.5, 3 hours each. So maybe I
don't think it took me quite long.
No.
Well, Ashley Birch is back for the bonus episode.
So I believe, yeah.
This is the voice actor.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the correct one, yeah.
So I have to ask, the consolidated release is obviously for the consolidated release is obviously for collectors and fans.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't played any of the games before, would you be inspired to pick up that edition of the game and play through it all at once rather than without having played through the individual episodes?
Absolutely. I normally only go for things on physical, and I tend to just kind of ignore digital releases unless something really compelling makes me. And because it came out on physical after it all come out on digital, but prior to it being given away free on everything, I picked up the original Life is Strange on word of mouth when I saw it was getting a physical release. That was the thing that prompted me to go and do that. And had it not been for that, I probably wouldn't have got around to playing it for another year. And it's only because I liked the first one so much that I couldn't not buy the new one, even though it was only available digitally, just because I had to play it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll call this clever marketing then.
Yeah, I needed to play it as soon as it came out so I could talk about it with people.
I see. So hang on. So you're buying a game twice there. Is that what you're doing?
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
But when I buy a game twice, that's fine. It's fine.
No, you've already got it 3 times.
That's we're quibbling over numbers now. That's
you two can play pots and kettles later. We have a podcast to complete.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, what's thrice plus one? That's worse than
that'd be 4. I'm actually looking for because I don't have a thrice. Yeah, I'm actually looking for a cheap physical copy of Hyrule Warriors for the Wii U because I've only got a digital copy, so I would need to buy another one. Play. What have we been playing? Because it's been a month at least, so I would have a very long list of things here, but I've whittled it down to a few. And the main thing I've been playing, in terms of impact, I suppose, rather than in terms of actual amount of time spent playing it, is What Remains of Edith Finch, which was on sale fairly recently on PS Plus or PSN with a PS Plus double discount or something, so it was incredibly cheap. You've played this as well, Zoe, I believe.
I did. I played it on PC because it was a similar discounted level on Steam, and apparently it performed better, so I went for that one.
Okay. So for those that don't know, What Remains of Edith Finch is a narrative discovery game, and it sits somewhere between Ethan Carter and Gone Home, so it doesn't really have any of the ghosty type stuff, or at least nothing is obviously ghosty stuff, but it's a bit more in-depth, and there's a bit more mystery there than there is in Gone Home. It's obviously a bit more technically advanced than Gone Home as well. And it tells the story of Edith, who's the last person in the Finch family tree, and she's returning to the bizarre Finch family home, which is, it really is bizarre. It's lots of bits of house all stuck on top of them in some strange shape, and she's gone back there to possibly to discover the secret to the family curse, which seems to have killed everyone else in the family. So
this may mean nothing to the UK, but I believe the setting is in the western coastal United States, off of Washington State, and so that's it's meaningful for anyone who's lived there and has seen how that part of the country has decayed over the years as industry has moved off and moved away.
It is set there, which kind of makes it very strange when you consider that the opening is the fact that they have sailed there from Norway. So you'd think they'd hit the East Coast, really.
They got a bit lost.
Yeah,
it took them a while to get there. Yeah, they thought they were heading for India and they ended up on the anyway, so as Edith, you explore the house, and most of the house you find is sealed off to begin with. But as you enter rooms of the previous occupiers, you find their diaries or newspaper articles or letters that mostly outlines how each of the various family members died. And as you read them, often you get to play them out in different ways to find out exactly how they died. And some of these sub-stories are pretty good. For example, one of them, Barbara, she was a one-time child star, and she has her death played out to you in the form of a Halloween comic book. So the whole thing starts getting is cel-shaded. There are actual like comic panels that appear, and the whole thing's narrated by some kind of pumpkin guy thing. And yeah, so it's quite good, and it actually takes you into a part of the house that you haven't reached yet, and then afterwards you then go in that area of the house and see it. So it's not all cel shaded, so it's quite clever.
I have to ask, not having played it,
yeah,
there are a number of games where the narrative is the prominent feature over the gameplay.
Yes,
things like Heavy Rain come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that had to be experienced as a video game, in your view? Is this not something that would have been better presented as a television program or a motion picture?
No, it only works as a game for reasons that I can't really get into without it being spoilery.
Right. Well,
have you played Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons?
I've not played it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, there's kind of moments in it like that where there's kind of sudden dawns of realization, and kind of the way the controls kind of work with each other in a way that if you weren't really hands-on with it, it wouldn't have anywhere near the same level of impact. And I'm thinking specifically about Lewis's story. The way that pans out,
yeah,
even though it's interactive in the minimalist sense, you're doing very, very little, but what you are doing is what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
So rather than there being the possibility of bad endings, there's a possibility of getting stuck or having to be involved in a way, which is what makes the narrative satisfying.
Yeah, you've no chance of you dying, and none of there's not really that many puzzles in it either. It's more a case of just discovering stuff. So you explore each of the rooms, you find things to interact with or to read, or just exploring and looking at the posters on the wall or the objects in the room tells a bit more of the story. And obviously, if it was a film, the cameraman would have to pan to the right place and would actually point you at the things. You're not discovering them for yourself. So if you're going quickly through it and you're literally just going from one place to the next to the next to the next without actually stopping and actually taking in each of the rooms and actually reading all of these messages that are around and and actually paying attention to the surroundings, you would be getting a different experience. So you do need to play it, really.
Yeah, each room you go in is the bedroom of one of the people who's died.
Yes.
And so you kind of go and you look around the room for like a minute, just to kind of get a feel for like the kind of character they are, the stuff that they're into, and then you'll find like a letter that somebody wrote to them, or like a letter somebody wrote to them after they died, or like the last page of their diary or something, and then that will trigger kind of a set piece, kind of an interactive cutscene. Sometimes it'll just be a single scene where you don't really move anywhere, but they're the bits you take control over, and the way it works is just so impressive. There's one particular scene on a swing, and you have only heard about this character for maybe 4 minutes by the end of that scene, and you never actually get to see what they look like, and their set piece scene lasts about 2 minutes, and it is in one single location. And somehow it is really deeply affecting when it kicks in.
I think part of it as well is that you know what's going to happen. I mean, even if it doesn't explicitly tell you, you know what's going to happen. And not only do you know what's going to happen, you're the one who has to make it happen as well. So it's, So anyway, so without putting spoilers in there, and basically you find out everyone died, which is obvious case. Well, almost everyone anyway. One of the kids from the family actually went missing and was never found, but obviously presumed dead. But whether there's actually an actual curse for the family and everybody dying in not even really mysterious circumstances, just slightly unusual or clumsy or stupid ways, whether there's actually a curse or whether it's just a terrible series of unfortunate deaths or coincidences is ultimately down to you to decide. There's nothing obvious one way or the other, really. But it was good. It's a good story. I don't think there's much replay value for me because I did explore what I thought was everywhere, looked at everything, and I'm pretty sure I know what's happened everywhere. But it was.
If it turns out there's a director's commentary, I haven't been back up to have a look, then I'd be interested in playing through it again with that on.
Yeah, actually, probably I would do that, yeah. So that was good. Other than that, I've been playing Fire Emblem Warriors, which is Hyrule Warriors, only with Fire Emblem characters. And for the most part, that's literally all it is. I've got no affinity for Fire Emblem characters. I like the games, but apart from Roy and Marth, I don't know anyone. And Roy's not in it, so that's just Marth. And you don't even get to play as Marth for most of the game. I don't really care. It's just people with swords and axes and stuff.
Not to get derailed on that subject, but part of the reason that Dynasty Warriors is so popular in the East is because these are figures from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the greatest civil war events of medieval China. Would you like a Warriors type game that depicted, say, the Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, or maybe I'm trying to think of what battles constitute significant parts of the British psyche.
It would be something. The English fighting the Scots, maybe, or do you know the Sharp books and TV series?
I believe I do.
Yeah, possibly that in Warriors form. That might do it for me, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. The obvious choice just dawned on me. The Battle of Hastings. The Battle of Hastings in Warriors format. Wouldn't that be something?
Maybe. I don't know. I came to Fire Emblem Warriors thinking, okay, I vaguely know about Fire Emblem, but it might fall down a bit because I don't know it that well. But in actual fact, it doesn't matter. It's still really good. There's a little bit more to it than Hyrule Warriors in terms of tactics. So you have a bit more control over the characters that you're not actually playing as at the time. So you can tell them to go and defend an area or go and attack a particular commander, or you can also team up with them so that you can wander around with two of them at the same time, so you can swap between them or make use of the other one's attacks while you're wandering around. So there's that, and also there's the standard Fire Emblem weapon triangle thing. So swords beat axes, axes beat lances, lances beat swords, or whatever. So there's always that to it as well, and that wasn't really there in Hyrule Warriors. For the most part, if your characters are powerful enough, they've leveled up enough that it doesn't actually make any difference. But certainly if you're doing levels which are aimed at your level or lower, then it does. So that's quite interesting. So
is it basically the Street Pass battle game?
Yeah, but you actually have to control the characters and actually do the fighting and stuff. There's a bit more to it than that, but yeah. So it's if you played a Warriors game, it's a Warriors game with Fire Emblem characters, so it's good. I mean, yeah. I don't think I'm going to get 300 hours out of it, but I'll certainly get plenty. So there's that, and also something else I've been playing is Undertale, which I know has been around for a while now, but I hadn't realised it was on any console platforms until I noticed it in the PSN sale. And I thought, hang on a minute, there's a Vita version, I can play that. Because I've had it on Steam for ages, but I just don't tend to play games on Steam. Certainly not ones that last more than about 10 minutes anyway. So I bought that because it was only about £4 or something, and played through it all in a couple of sittings because it's only about 5 or 6 hours long. Went back for another hour to get the best ending, and was pretty disappointed by the whole experience, really, to be honest. It's not as good as I was expecting. I thought it was going to be more like... I mean, a lot of people say it's more like... it's a lot like Earthbound. So it's a JRPG. It's a bit quirky. It's there are odd characters in it that talk to you and ask you to do strange things that are a bit unusual, especially for a JRPG. But the main point of it that makes it stand out from other JRPGs is that instead of fighting all the baddies, you can pacify them or talk them out of the fight and then spare their lives, and they, reward you or don't kill you or whatever. But there's just
not to take away from your experience, but that's something that's present in previous games. Shin Megami Tensei comes to mind, but Planescape Torment is probably the example that most people know.
Yes, probably. I've not played that, but yeah. But this is I don't know. It was quite funny, but not funny enough. The characters are quite quirky, but I don't know. The world wasn't. I want to say believable, but that sounds stupid because the setting's not supposed to be believable. But the characters didn't seem to go well together. And there's all this nonsense about you dating some of the characters, or some of the other characters want to date other characters, and it all just seems a bit tacked on and not really much to do with the game, apart from everybody's friends at the end, and it all turned into an episode of My Little Pony. But it was fun. I got my few hours out of it, but I kind of built it up on my head that it was going to be really good, and the moment I saw it on console, I was going to pounce on it, and it was going to be brilliant, and it wasn't. Oh, that was a bit disappointing. It's gone now. So that's most of the stuff that I've been playing. Zoe, what have you been up to?
I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Oranges on Xbox One, and I'm really in two minds. It's the first one I've played since 4, so I've skipped the last 2. I thought that 4 was...
You skipped the last 3.
Are you including Rogue in that?
Yes.
Okay, I've skipped the last 3, but I didn't like 4 anywhere near as much as most people seem to. I thought it was had some alright Assassins bits filled with endless amounts of pirating tedium.
Yes, I thought exactly the same.
Which is, but most people seem to really get on board with the pirate stuff, so much so that they're now basically making the Assassin's Creed Pirates mode spin-off game.
Which I'm quite pleased about, because it means they don't have that in the main series. So they've split it off for that. So
I was somewhat surprised when playing the Egyptian one, when I got about 15 hours in and was suddenly presented with a pirate section, which was a bit odd. But it lasted about 5 minutes, and it's the only one that I've found so far. So that's good. But with me having been off it for so long, I'm not really sure what I think on the whole matter.
Okay, so how does it differ? how does it differ from the others? From what I've seen, basically, is they've stripped back all of the on-screen display stuff, so you haven't got icons all over the place. Is that right? You've just got a compass at the top.
No, you've still got icons.
Really?
The icons are on your compass. Whichever way you're facing, it shows you all of the icons.
Okay.
And whenever you get to a new area, it throws up a load of new icons. There are nowhere near as many.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than having like eavesdrop quest and whatever, all the different kinds of quests, there's just main quest and side quest. And the side quests mostly seem to be go over here, kill all these people, come back. So there's no more eavesdropping, which at least that's something, because I always really hated those.
Yeah, I don't think they've been in it for a while though, really. So
it's like I say, it's been a while. But I think just because I've taken a few years off and they took a year off to kind of reinvent it, I'm kind of surprised at how much it's exactly the same. The world is massive, maybe to a fault. It is like ridiculously big, and because it's all land, it's not like Assassin's Creed 4 where it felt big in a kind of Wind Waker-y way, but it was cheating. But very little has changed. They've added like really basic crafting, by which I mean there are 6 items at the bottom of your gear screen you can craft by pressing a button. You've now got interchangeable gear and loot, and you get lots of loot that's like rare and legendary. It's basically Assassin's Creed as it was before, but in Egypt, but they've thrown some Destiny stuff into it as well, because that's what the kids like these days.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm enjoying it because it's been so long since I played an Assassin's Creed game, and I think I needed that. I am really enjoying it. The other slight issue is it's completely broken.
In what way? That's only a slight issue.
Buggiest game. It's the buggiest game I've played in years. It's worse than I remember Skyrim being. And I can't believe that they've taken a year off and they've got like 500 people making this thing. And it is just so broken.
But this is every Assassin's Creed game. Every Assassin's Creed game is full of bugs.
Well, I skipped Unity, but I played 1, 2, and 4, and I never had any problems with them. Everything always worked. This morning, in the space of 10 minutes, I was doing a quest where somebody was held captive in the back of a cart that was being dragged along by a horse. So I snuck up behind the car, unlocked the door, climbed in, untied the woman who was there, and then pressed the button to carry her. And then we just kind of both teleported outside of the cart, but she remained in her like bound position, but just kind of hovering in the air, and I couldn't do anything with it. So I had to reload. And about 10 minutes later, I was infiltrating a base. Somebody saw me, so I kind of made a run for it. I jumped off a wall, went to grab, and as he went to grab the other wall, he reached out to the ledge, missed, and then was just kind of doing a scrambling motion, just stuck in midair for about 40 seconds until I'd been hit with enough arrows to die. So yeah, if you're my friend on Xbox, then check out my feed, because I put a video up of that, because it was just amazing. Yeah, there's just so many game-breaking bugs in it that I've had to reload saves and stuff so many times because things just don't work, which is a shame because it is good, but it is more Assassin's Creed, and if you kind of took them at their word that they took a year off to reinvent everything, then don't, because it's exactly the same as it always was.
Okay.
But I've been playing that on Xbox One with my new Elite controller, and I have very nice things to say about that.
So this is the Elite controller, which is normally what, 120, 130 quid or something stupid, or?
I think the RRP is 130. Yeah, I managed to get one for 70, and it's very heavy. Like if you hold it side by side with the original Xbox One controller, it feels like it's double the weight. But it's like really hefty. It comes with 3 sets of analog sticks and 2 D-pads.
Right.
So I'm currently using the ones that are kind of the most like the original analog sticks. You've then got ones that are about 5mm longer, because apparently some people like that because you get a bit more precision. And then you've got some kind of short stubby ones with convex tops that are kind of more like DualShock 3 sticks, which I'm not sure why anybody would want to use those. Then D-pad wise, you've got a really nice kind of traditional cross D-pad, or you can swap it out for kind of a big plate thing.
Right.
That's a bit like the one on the Steam controller, is that right?
Has that actually got a D-pad?
No, it's a big
no,
touchpad,
you're right.
basically.
You're right. The Steam controller doesn't. So what am I thinking of that has a big plate with the weird sections? There's some other controller that's situated like that.
I'm not sure, but I think if you kind of imagine the the Saturn D-pad, but imagine that the entire thing was concaved in a kind of dish form. It's not dissimilar to that. It's kind of really nice to roll around. The triggers are really nice and weighty, and they've also got little switches on the back that will lock their maximum drop point at about halfway if you're playing FPSs, so you can fire without going the full range of motion.
Oh, okay.
Which is nice. And then it's also got 4 kind of paddle things that you attach to the back, which are very strange. I very briefly tried it with Forza and stuck it on manual gears, and they do make for really nice flappy paddle gear shifters, but whenever I'm playing Assassin's Creed I take them off because they just get in the way. But you can configure those to be any button you like, or you can configure them to be various like button combos. So, and yeah, the whole thing is like very highly configurable, and it's just like a really nice meaty plastic with like really nice textured rubber on the front. You just get a really good grip on it. It is definitely the nicest controller I've used.
130 quid's worth of controller?
If you got 130 quid to blow on a controller, it's the best one you can get. I mean, 70 quid is like double what I'd normally be comfortable spending on a controller, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I've finished Wolfenstein 2, which is another weird one, because in terms of its story, its set pieces, its cutscenes, and its setting, it's probably the best game I've ever played. And in terms of actually playing it, it's not very good. Which is a crying shame, because it's so much fun. Like, just about anything I say will be a massive spoiler, but there are some scenes in that game that you literally just kind of, your mouth hangs open and you're like, I cannot believe anybody even thought of that, let alone thought they could pull it off. And yet they did. Like, there is no scene more absurd than the main kind of turning point that just kind of leaves you slack-jawed and perplexed as to what on earth they were thinking. But
I've recently been playing the New Order.
Yep.
And it's not normally my kind of game, but again, it was another one that's cheap, and I ended up playing it. And I must be about 2-3 hours into that, and that's been ridiculous so far already. So presumably this is several stages above that, is it? Isn't it?
Yeah, they realised they had to outdo themselves and then some, and it's just gone to the most absurd levels you could conceivably think of. And apparently, well, I mean, it's certainly set up to be the middle part of a trilogy. So I don't know if enough people bought it, but if they do make a third, I dread to think what's going to happen with that.
Yeah. Well, nobody bought it. They're waiting for the Switch version. That's why.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So play both of those games reservedly.
Right. Okay. We'll do. Kendrick, then, what have you been playing?
Well, I have split my attention between Bloodborne, the Old Hunters. Not a lot to report there, except to say that I've forgotten how to beat all the bosses. You would think that you would retain this information in your head, but that's either a product of youth or a product of idle hands. So I'm having to relearn how to do a lot of this stuff. The main thing I've been playing, though, surprisingly, is Jeff Minter's TXK. I don't remember if either of you have played this at all.
Yes, I played it on Vita, and I didn't last very long because I'm not very good at Jeff Minter games.
Well, I don't know if you happen to know that it's only available on Vita.
I didn't. I know it was originally, but I kind of assumed it would have appeared on more stuff by now.
It was supposed to. What happened was Jeff Minter was served with a cease and desist order from the Atari Corporation.
Oh,
apparently,
yes, he was.
Yes, there's some question as to whether or not he actually has the privilege of re-releasing the Tempest 2000 type of game, as his own without licensing it from Atari. And that's why we ended up getting Space Giraffe on the 360 and then later on the PC.
Yeah.
So, because Space Giraffe is supposed to be completely disjoint from the world of Tempest. Anyway, because of all of this controversy and because it's not available as a normal Vita card, it's only available as a download. I hadn't played it up until now, and I think it was released back in, 2011 or something absurd like that. But I finally got it, and I regret to say that I'm a little bit disappointed because there's just something perfect about the original Tempest 2000 to the point where I went and I got out the Atari Jaguar just to be able to play it to compare. And TXK the music is off, the graphics are off. It's just doesn't feel as sharp. I don't know if that's a product of it being on the Vita screen, or that there's so much more tutorializing and all these extra extraneous graphics bits happening on screen that just don't seem to add anything to the gameplay. I feel like that there was a similar problem with Defender 2000 on the Jaguar, and I think originally, or I think later on the PC as well. I wish that this had been better. I wish it had lived up to my expectations, and I feel like a chump now for having redeemed $10 worth of petrol station redemption points in order to get the PlayStation Network code to buy it for $9.99, which means that after this and Daytona, I now have 2 cents in credit because both of those items ended at a price that, was something 99.
Yeah.
And you can't buy PlayStation Network credit in anything that's not a whole number of dollars or pounds or whatever your human currency units are.
Well, you can, but you have to do it via the store.
Yes. Anyway, this leads to the very illogical thought that now that I've busted my cherry, as it were, in terms of buying games digitally on the PlayStation Network, it's only inevitable that I'll end up buying Yakuza 5 at some point in the next month or two. So expect me to be reporting on that in a podcast sometime soon.
Will you be buying Tempest 4000?
I did not know that existed. Please tell me about this.
Oh, Minter and Atari have made up.
They have, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Minter's making Tempest 4000 with Atari.
And what platforms will this be available on?
Everything, I think.
PS4, I think, was the one that was originally mentioned, but yeah, I would imagine everything.
I just read PC and consoles, so yeah. I kind of assume that's your lot. I'm hoping for a VR mode because he said that he got TXK working in VR prior to them saying that he wasn't allowed to release it on anything.
Well, yes, I will probably buy it, and I will probably be first in line to buy it. So, is there any concept art? Is there a sizzle reel or a trailer, as it were?
Let me just dig up the news article.
There's not one I've seen, but I think we can imagine pretty much the kind of game it will be. Just more stuff to make your eyes bleed. And
on Eurogamer's article, there's just a picture of a llama. It says we don't have any assets of Tempest 4000, so here's a picture of a llama instead.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to it anyway because I'm a big chump, as I said.
I'm hoping it looks like that, to be honest.
So, has anybody played anything else?
No, I played a bit of Gorogoa, which I know you finished, but I got stuck on because my brain and video game logic puzzles are two things that are intrinsically incompatible and always have been. I've still never finished a Resident Evil game, despite many, many attempts to, because I just can't get my head around how these things work.
Yeah, you do have to have it's one puzzle inside another puzzle inside another puzzle with another puzzle going on alongside it at the same time.
Yeah, and because you got like 3 windows and they've all got about 6 layers, and you know that 2 of them kind of connect at some way, but you have to have like them both at the right zoom for it to become obvious, and it just seems to be an awful lot of trial and error, but mostly error.
Yeah, and then you realise that you've got them all together in the right place, but you need to do something else first, so you have to disassemble it and then go back to the other scene. And yeah, there is a lot of back and forth and stuff like that, but it does make you feel ever so clever.
I mean, it's really, really good, but I find it really... I love the concept, but it's kind of doing what Braid did. You know, it looks gorgeous, the concept is great, and when it clicks, you feel like a genius.
Yeah.
But I just spend half the time looking at it going, there is no possible way.
So if that's everything we've been playing, then we have a number of listener questions.
I can't wait.
Yeah, a lot of listener questions as well. Look at that. Well, I say listeners, virtually all of them are from people who've been on the podcast already. No, well, no, not all of them. Half of them, maybe. Some of them. Anyway, so we go through those. Thermal Satsuma says, do you watch or participate in any esports, and are they even proper sports? No and no.
Now, okay, I would like to debate you on this point.
Okay.
They're not proper sports in terms of athleticism as we understand it, because if we're watching football, then we're watching, men and women who have trained all their lives to achieve great achievements of physical achievement.
Yeah.
Where does a competitive chess game, fit on that spectrum?
I don't know. We're
That
talking just
depends who
normal,
you ask.
normal chess or chess boxing.
Normal chess.
Oh no, then.
We'll set aside the variant of chess boxing for the moment.
Yeah, there is no agreed upon definition of what a sport is. So so British Sport, which is the British government's funding body for sport projects, they say that chess isn't a sport, and they also say that darts isn't a sport, but they say that pool is.
Well, also, if I'm not mistaken, rock paper scissors is also considered a sport in Britain, is it not?
I don't know if it is officially. It might be. I don't know if it gets government funding. If it did, then that would be great. I know that the
special gloves. Or...
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The International Olympic Committee don't qualify chess as a sport, but there's an awful lot of things in the Olympics that I don't consider sport in the kind of physical ability test. Things like gun shooting.
But it's back to the point that I wanted to make, though. I struggle to accept esports as any kind of sporting event, but viewed in the context of, say, chess or Scrabble, competitive Scrabble is apparently really, really big in the United States. And that's just a bunch of people sitting around a game board trying to place clever words in interesting combinations. And it gets televised, it gets reported on, there's rivalries, there's scoring, there's all the stuff that goes with sport. And so if people can enjoy not only participating in that, but being spectators to it, who am I to judge whether or not an Overwatch tournament, doesn't deserve the same level of appreciation?
No, I agree with what you're saying, but I wouldn't class it as sport. I would say it would be entertainment. I would say it'd be competitive. I would say it'd be, interesting, all that kind of thing. But as an actual sport, I would have difficulty classing it as that. But then I have difficulty classing pool as a sport as well. So
yeah, if you look at like the list of the most popular and most watched spectator sports in Britain, aside from the obvious kind of football, rugby, tennis, cricket, the next big two are probably darts and snooker. I know you don't have snooker in America. Are you familiar with it and how it works?
Yes. The table confuses me, but I recognize it when I see it.
Yeah.
And so they both get hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of viewers in their main championships on British TV. And neither of those really require. They require precision, they require mental dexterity, and they require kind of arm and hand skill. But neither of them require you to have any kind of real athleticism in order to excel.
Look at darts specifically in the last few weeks. Was it the guy? I don't know darts, but the guy who won whatever the UK Championship or the European Championship even was just some guy from a pub. He beat the reigning champion. He just turned up, went through and won. So yeah, that's not.
Incidentally related to that, the darts championship is apparently popular enough that it's going to be broadcast on BBC America.
Brilliant.
I couldn't tell you why.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the mental dexterity and the reaction speed and like the speed and nimbleness of fingers from competitive esports players is quite frankly absurd. I can't really get my head around how they can react to things that quickly and move like that. And they train for hours a day, just as much as a traditional sportsman would at that level. These people are playing like Dota and League for 10, 12 hours a day in prep for tournaments because they know that there's $1 million on the line. I guess it doesn't really matter if you class it as a sport or not. People like watching it. People are good at playing it. I don't really have any interest in them, but that's largely because all of the big esport games are games that I don't really have any interest in. I think that if chess is a sport, then StarCraft is a sport.
Next question then from Amiga Ramapod, who is Lorfarius from last episode of the podcast. And he says, how much wood can a woodchuck chuck? Which is a very clever question, I'm sure you'd agree. It depends on a number of factors. Is it all in one go or over a period of time? How big's the wood? Is it something light like balsa wood, or something really heavy like ebony or snake wood? We need more parameters, basically.
Also, when he says woodchuck, is he referring to a lumberjack, or is he referring to the rodent, the woodchuck, which doesn't really chuck wood? It kind of gnaws it and then spits it out.
Well, unless he's chucking it up. Anyway, but yeah.
I'm very angry about this question because it caused me to spend 90 hours reading the groundhog Wikipedia article. So now I know everything about its habitat, how it's expanding due to deforestation in North America, how it doesn't actually chuck wood, but how it's also a menace in terms of disrupting farming and irrigation. So I wanted to have a serious answer, but I don't have one because I'm just too damn angry.
I tried to find a video game angle on it, and I couldn't find any video games that have woodchucks in it. So
excellent.
So thanks for that, Lorf. That was a brilliant question. Next question from Wildcard Zero. Where did Zoe find an Xbone Elite controller for 70 quid? Off the back of a lorry, presumably?
No. I did post on various places a bargain alert when a couple of weeks ago the nice people at eBay did a 6-hour promotion where it was 20% off anything on eBay. You just put in a code and you get 20% off.
Yeah.
So I bought a stack of games, and I also found a place that was doing Elite controllers refurbished. It said it was A- condition for 90 quid, or I could get an A+ condition for 110. So I went for the A-, got my 20% off, worked out about £72. And I can't. It came in the box with all of its original packaging and pretty much looks new to me. So that's how.
Oh.
So it was a promotional thing by eBay that probably they took a loss on for some items, but drummed up enough business to meet whatever arbitrary performance goal.
I'm assuming that they were just picking up the difference, but it was basically site-wide. I think it was a maximum discount of £75 and a minimum spend of 20. But so basically up to 500 quid, it was just 20% off anything you wanted. So there were loads. You could get a Switch for 220.
Yeah, I noticed that very, very soon after that, Shop 2 on eBay put the prices of their Switch up.
Yeah, you could get an Xbox One X with 6 games for under 400 quid.
Yeah,
it was a good day.
Yeah,
I was quite restrained, to be honest.
I think I got some PSN credit, and that was it.
Yeah, no, I got an Elite controller and 6 games, I think.
Tim Miller says, which is your favourite level in Populous at the beginning?
The first one, because it's the only one I can remember.
You have played it. Kendrick, have you
I think I played the first level about 8 times.
Yeah.
I've not played it, but I know all about its history, which kind of disturbs me. This is the third Populous game, and the first one that was made after Peter Molyneux left Bullfrog to form Lionhead. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
I think the only reason this might be on my mind is because didn't Peter Molyneux just exit Microsoft, and now he's trying to spin up some new fantasy property? No, I have that backwards. They're about to start developing a new Fable game without Peter, not Molyneux. That's what's happening.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be good.
I can't remember. That's unkind.
They weren't bad games, but they were nothing like they were supposed to be. But then that's Peter Molyneux. So
I thought Fable 2 was an exceptional game. If you kind of like ignore all of the hyperbole surrounding the first one and just kind of take the second one at face value for what it is, I think it nailed it.
That is kind of the thing, though. You had to come into the game without preconceptions, and that's a very small part of the Venn diagram. People who bought Fable 2, because they liked the cover art or because they saw an ad rather than having been sold it by, hearing months and months and months of hype. I'm sorry, we're getting away from the original question now. I don't think I've ever played that particular Populous game, so I couldn't tell you what a favorite level is because I don't have one.
My favorite level is the last one because then it's all over and you don't have to play it anymore. Yeah. I've never reached the last level. It's so I hate the game. I can't stand it. It's awful, which is why Tim mentioned it. Anyway, Toby Newman. He says, which 2 characters from video games would make a good couple? A good couple of what? I don't know. But a good couple.
Presumably he's talking about a committed couple who have a romance and a courtship and eventually go to build a future together. And This is a hard question to answer seriously, because do you ever think of video game characters as having a life external to their, colorful adventures that you're seeing on screen?
I've seen Wreck-It Ralph. It's true. It's all true.
I think this is an easy question. I'm Team Pricefield all the way. Max and Chloe.
Yeah, I think that might be a given, though. That's the yeah.
I'm sorry. I did try to think of this seriously, and all I could come up with was Mai Shiranui and Andy Bogard from the Fatal Fury King of Fighters games.
Okay. Am I wrong in thinking they got together anyway? Didn't that happen? Did I?
I honestly don't remember.
Oh. I don't know. I thought in one of the later King of Fighters games they had a kid or something. I don't know.
Oh, no. What you're remembering is Mai has a taunt move where she's able to take one of her weapons and make it appear to be a swaddled infant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so what happens is when the two of them are opponents, she appears to be cradling an infant, and then Andy looks on it with horror until she, flips it open to reveal that it's one of her serrated fans. And then he's at once relieved, but then also, feeling foolish for having been taken in by the ruse.
Okay.
I can't believe I remember that. I've wasted my life.
That's good knowledge, though, and that'll
serve me well in life.
I'm sure it will. Yeah. As for me, I have no idea. I think it's up to the characters in the games to decide for themselves. Really, we shouldn't really be pushing people together. That just causes problems. Maybe introduce them in the first instance and go out for some kind of group date with them, and perhaps leave them to it at some point in the evening. But we definitely shouldn't be pushing people together. Next question from it's Quasimod. He's finally decided to tell me what it is, although he also said he doesn't actually care what we call him, so I could come up with all kinds of things we could call him, but no, I'll stick with Quasimod for now. And he says certain game series, Final Fantasy, Persona, GTA, have numbered games that are barely related at all with unique characters, settings and stories. Is there any game in such a series where you'd welcome a continuation of events in a direct sequel? Final Fantasy X-2 styly. Well, he said styly, so we should just ignore everything he said now. I think nobody says that. But I think I understand the question. Yes. Okay. So I can't think of any in particular, but one thing that did disappoint me was that GTA 4 and GTA 5 don't exist in the same GTA universe as 3 and San Andreas and Vice City. I mean, there's a few characters that are referenced between them. There's a few Easter eggs. Like in GTA 5, you can actually go to the street from San Andreas where CJ lived. But it's not really the same place. It's like another instance of the same place. Yeah, so they're not really in the same. They're not really in the same universe. They're more reimaginings or reboots, and I thought that was a bit disappointing because I couldn't see any reason why they wouldn't just carry that on. But apart from that, no, I can't think of sequels to games.
I was hoping for some kind of expansion on GTA 5. I assumed that they would do some story DLC, and I was under the impression that they were planning to until they realised that they were accidentally making more money than God on the online stuff, so they decided not to bother. Because I thought the Ballad of Gay Tony was the best thing about GTA 4.
It was very good, yeah.
And probably the best thing Rockstar had done up until 5. So more of that. I'd also like some kind of follow-on to Parappa the Rapper 2 that goes into the backstory of the Pasta Man.
Really, I didn't think there was much depth to any of the characters. Literally, no depth to the characters in Battle.
Well, there is no literal depth, but I would like some metaphorical depth. I want to know where like all his pasta came from and like what got him kind of down the road of like pasta mania and that kind of thing.
I think a lot of the characters in that game, I don't think I really want to know where any of their foibles come from. That would be a door I'd like to keep shut, I think.
When I read the question, the first thing that came to mind was Quake 3, but they have actually just released a sequel in early access, but I haven't played it yet.
Quake 3 2 or Quake 4?
Well, it's Quake Champions.
Right.
I think it's Quake 3, but with heroes, because that's what you need to sell your games now.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So Overwatch type.
Yeah,
Quake,
it's like Quake 3, but with Overwatch stuff. But apparently, it is kind of a direct sequel in the lineage of Quake 3.
Okay.
All right. Well, so taking Quasimod's question seriously for a moment, he's talking about games in a series where the gameplay is all that connects them. The narrative is otherwise disconnected, which is
so.
why he. I mean, that's why he cites the example of Final Fantasy X too, because that's one of the few examples of revisiting that world and not just going off in some other creative direction. And I struggle with this because I don't know that there are a lot of game series that do that. Most games where you have a third installment, it's because you're coming back to that same world and those same characters or their descendants or people who were related to them. If I had to go there, I'm really hoping for a new Shining Force game, because Shining Force goes one further. The first three, I say three, there were like 9 of them, but the first 3 numbered Shining Force games were all tactical. They were strategy RPGs played on a grid that covered the events of a single fantasy world generations apart, but it was still that same world. And then they went off on the side tangent with a couple of Diablo clones. And of course, the whole thing spins off from Shining in the Darkness, which was that game on the Saturn that was a Wizardry clone, where it was a first-person dungeon crawl. So, never mind.
I thought that was Shining the Holy Ark. Shining in the Darkness was the JRPG.
Shining in the Darkness was on... Shining in the Darkness was on the Mega Drive, you're right.
Yeah.
And its direct sequel was Shining the Holy Ark on the Saturn.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have wasted my life because
there's Shining Wisdom as well, and
yes, which is the overhead Zelda type action RPG.
Yeah.
And anyway, I that all these games are disjoint, but somehow set in the same world. Mm-hmm. I just want another one, and I don't really care which of those variations it is. I would like to come back to the Shining world, because the last time that we were there was during the PlayStation 2 era with the Diablo clones, and we haven't been back since. And I'd like more.
Where are Camelot now? It is Camelot that used to make them, isn't it?
Yes, and Camelot is now wholly owned by Nintendo.
Yeah, because I know Camelot did the Mario Golf on the Game Boy Advance, and it seemed to have pretty much the same front end as Shining the Holy Ark, I noticed. Like all the menus that came up looked exactly the same, and the save sequence was exactly the same, and it was the same graphical style and everything.
You would think that now that Nintendo and Sega play nice together and share characters, that there would be an inclination to revisit some of those old properties, but I imagine some accountant somewhere has done the maths and decided, nope, not enough players, not enough market.
Yeah, it's probably too close to... I mean, they wouldn't want to do another Shining Wisdom because they've got Zelda. They wouldn't want to do another Shining Force because they've got Fire Emblem. They wouldn't, so they probably want to stick to their own properties. But yeah, it's a shame.
I didn't even think of it conflicting with Nintendo's properties. That makes me doubly sad.
But then why aren't Camelot making a Fire Emblem?
Because they are now Nintendo Sports Studio.
Are they?
They've made all the Mario Golf, Mario Tennis games, and they also made Golden Sun. Yes, they are.
Ah, well, that might be good then, because
they also did the Golden Sun series, so they have made RPGs in the last 20 years.
Next question from Jolly Nice Soup. He says, hello, Sexbot here. This is a reference when I asked for the questions. We seem to have at least half of the followers on Twitter are Sexbots, I'm sure.
Excellent.
So I'm glad one's come forward. Lots of people are getting very excited about Nintendo Directs at the moment. What do the panel think? I think that means us. Think about this method of communicating with players. I know it's quite good, just avoiding all the big events and just bringing out news when they fancy bringing out news.
I like it.
Yeah.
I do also really like the kind of absurd E3 spectacles, and I wouldn't want the other companies to stop doing them, because I do like them, absurd as they are. And I kind of, part of me wished that Nintendo still did them, but I also often thought that they didn't do them as well as the others. But I like their extended E3 Directs. I'm not so big on all of the treehousey stuff, but I definitely like the mini ones that they dot around the year. I think that other companies should be doing that kind of thing. Rather than just, here is every single bit of news we're going to give you for the entire year shoehorned into 2 hours.
Yeah.
I kind of like here's your big hour and a half E3 thing, and then, oh look, here's an update of the games that we gave you a trailer for. Here's some new stuff you might like to see, or here's another thing unannounced. Because quite often, and you don't release. It's getting rarer and rarer, but there are still quite often games where the time between announce and release is less than a year. So if you're releasing a game in April and you're only announcing it in November, you don't have an E3 window, so you've got to do something to get it out there.
Yeah, and obviously Nintendo like to sit on things and then announce them, how Apple used to pretty much. It's kind of like, look, here's a brand new thing that you didn't know was coming, and it's available not necessarily immediately, although sometimes it is, but very soon.
Unless it's Metroid Prime 4 or that Pokemon game.
Well, Metroid Prime 4, they had no choice but to do that, did they? Because everybody's clamouring for it, and so literally just saying, look, they literally just said the words Metroid Prime 4. That was it, nothing else.
Since when has people clamouring been an incentive for Nintendo to do anything?
Well, I suppose, yeah.
I like the Nintendo Direct presentations in principle. I like having the information in an easy to digest format that's available to me at my command, where I didn't have to be somewhere special or to go somewhere special to do it. But I can't help being cynical, and this is just me being, negative and horrible, but I can't help thinking that Nintendo is trying to control their message in a way that's not very customer friendly, because half the point of being at E3 and making these presentations is to gauge customer feedback. And granted, you can do that on Twitter or via, whatever social media platform you care to pull out of your hat. But it feels like there's distance. It feels like there's distance there that Nintendo is purposefully engineering because there's some parts of that customer interaction that they just don't feel like dealing with, that they don't want to have to account for. I recall there was a Nintendo executive who was discussing some of the technical aspects of the original Wii. He's famous for having given one of those non-apology apologies where he apologized if anyone was offended at the way that he described the limitations of the SD card storage as just something that everybody had to suck up and deal with. And I wish I could remember his name because, this is the sort of thing that you want to remember about people so that you can hold a grudge against them. But, that's my detailed impressions of what a Nintendo Direct is like. I like having the information. I'm not sure if they're not being just a little bit frightened of their customers or demonstrating that.
Yeah, maybe. I think part of the reason why they like doing these as well is because they can tailor them slightly to each of the regions. Even if that's just to have a Japanese voiceover on some and to have an American voiceover on another, which isn't quite so easy to do if they're doing a live demonstration at E3. So, I think that's part of the reason. And also because they can show more of games that might appeal more to a Japanese audience and less of those elsewhere and so on. But I mean, one of the things I like about the minis in particular, I mean, especially the one that just went, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was like 12 minutes long. It's like, here's a new game, look at this new game, isn't it great? Bang, next game, here's another new game, look at this game, isn't it great? Bang, next game. It's like you just get inundated with like, look at all these games. When you break it down, there perhaps weren't quite so many games, weren't quite so many new things. But because it's all kind of like, here's a game, here's another game, here's another game, you get the impression there's a lot more there than there really was.
It's well orchestrated.
Yes, yeah.
Well, one thing I have noticed is that even though it feels like it's meant to be a very kind of consumer-targeted rather than investor-targeted thing, they use really formal language, and they use the word Nintendo a lot. To the point where it kind of sounds uncomfortable and like they're reading from a style guide. Like at the end of every single thing, it's like, and this will be available on Nintendo eStore for Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
You didn't need to say all that. They also really like using the word select. This will be available in select regions on select dates.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about this. Unfortunately, this is another aspect of me having wasted my life on media training this time. The reason that they are so repetitive is because once it's been published, once it's been released, they can't control which tiny snippet is going to be cut out and used in someone else's video or someone else's associated marketing. And so they have to make sure that the branding and the disclaimers are present every 4 or 5 seconds with every individual atomized announcement.
They're not the only one as well. I remember, I think it was when they originally announced the Xbox One at E3 or whatever, and they said the word Xbox so many times. And somebody took the entire video and just stripped out everything apart from the word Xbox. And it was just Xbox, 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 Xbox over and over and over again for a good 15 minutes or so, just to make the point that they'd said Xbox so many times. But they said Xbox One, not just Xbox, to really drill home that it's called Xbox One, not Xbone, like they'd obviously realised a lot of people were going to call it. Okay, and our final question then is from Fizzy Chicken, and he says, what do I play next? Secret of Mana, Pillars of Eternity, Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls, or Okami? PS4.
That's easy because I've only played one of them and it's one of the best games I've ever played, so screw the rest.
Secret of
Breath of the Wild. No. Breath of the Wild.
Fizzy Chicken is asking about Switch games, right?
No, because 2 of them aren't Switch games.
Are they not?
3 of them aren't Switch games.
Oh, okay.
Right, Breath of the Wild is, Dark Souls will be, but isn't yet. Okami was a Wii game, wasn't it? Maybe.
Well, he did expressly state Okami PS4.
Yeah.
Okay. So if Okami HD is available on Switch later, then it probably doesn't apply here. Okay. Well,
of those, I've only played Secret of Mana, Breath of the Wild, and Okami, and a very small amount of Dark Souls. I don't know. Breath of the Wild probably.
Count me then as the lone vote for Dark Souls, because gods, I must have put in 150 hours on Dark Souls, which doesn't count, 200 plus on Demon Souls, and then easily 40 and 50 on Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. So that would be my recommendation. Of course, he's going to ignore us all and just go play Tetris or something.
Yeah, probably. Call of Duty.
Actually, I know I've waxed lyrical enough about Breath of the Wild on this show, so I'm not going to do it too long. But it's kind of came to mind when I was playing Assassin's Creed, which is a big open world game and is completely broken, like so many big open world games are. And it just kind of makes you appreciate the Breath of the Wild is massive, like ridiculously big, and has so many complex interweaving systems all at work, that people have managed to make do things that I'm sure nobody at Nintendo ever even dreamed of, like throwing out a boomerang and then catching it with a magnesis and using it as a levitating chainsaw. And yet it never, ever breaks.
No.
And I tried really hard to break it. And you can't believe that a game of that scope, with that many variables, with that much stuff that nobody in QA will have ever even seen before, just always holds up.
I saw a video today of somebody who he was standing in front of a tree and he'd cut the tree down, but before the tree had started to fall, he used stasis on the tree, and then he hit the tree over and over and over again. So do you know when you hit things when they're in stasis and they fly off into the distance when stasis finishes? Before stasis finished, he then climbed the tree. So he got flung halfway across the map holding onto this tree. And then he jumped off the tree and then used his parachute to glide another, God knows how many 100 feet. And then, but Nintendo can't have planned for that. I think they just put a system in place whereby if that works, then it was supposed to be like that.
Yeah,
rather than the game actually
everything
break.
works. Yeah, everything works within the logic. And so they've just kind of put down the logic and they've trusted it to always do exactly what it's supposed to do and what you expect it to do. And it does.
Mm.
Well, let's not overstate the matter here. I think that what's happened is Nintendo has constrained their engine much more. It seems like it's better, more logically put together because there are fewer things that can happen, as opposed to Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed insert fruit here, where they wanted to have as many things as possible to happen, but then that meant that the testing and the possibility that it would break became much more likely.
Yeah.
I mean, Assassin's Creed certainly has more stuff kind of in the way of NPCs, although there is no AI. It's the worst AI in certainly any Assassin's Creed game I've played. Like the number of times I've just been kind of sitting, watching people from a distance, like waiting to pick them off. And there was this one guy, I was watching him for 5 minutes. He climbed a ladder, got to the top, climbed off it, turned around and went straight back down the ladder. And he just kept doing this, just climbing and up and down this ladder, never actually like leaving the area where the ladder was, over and over again for 5 minutes. And it's not like he even like peered up over the top. And there was one quest that I had to restart because I had to steal a horse-driven cart that was being driven by some soldiers. By the time I got to it, the soldiers had driven it into a wall, and you can't reverse it. So I had to reload it because I couldn't get it away from the wall. So because if you look at the magnesis system, the weather system, the heating and cooling system, all of these things are stuff that isn't really in anything else. I mean, like some of it's in like the Witcher and Skyrim, but nothing of that kind of general complexity really exists in Assassin's Creed. It's very, very samey. You basically you run, you climb, you stab, you fire a bow, and you try not to get seen by people while they walk into walls. Kind of in terms of the complexity of systems and the number of systems, I'd say that Zelda's got it beat, even before you factor in take into account the fact that there's work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my rant.
Yeah,
right, so busy. Play Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, okay. Go and do that. That's it then. That's all our questions, and that's the end. So thank you very much for listening, and welcome back to the podcast after our short break over Christmas. If you have any comments or questions, then please email us on podcast@ugvm.org.uk or send us a message on Twitter @ugvmpodcast. You can also have a look at our Steam curator page, which I haven't looked at recently, but I think Toby's been putting some things on there, and there'll be a link to that somewhere in the show notes. If you want to contact me, I'm available on Twitter @deKay01. Anybody else like to give out their personal details and home addresses and fan clubs? Or
I'm on Twitter @Zamoniac, and I'm on various gaming services @Zamoniac, and I don't want to give you my address.
Okay.
I'd like to invite you to come and visit me on GameSX.com, where we discuss modification and improvement of retro game consoles and repair as well. And if you'd like to meet me in person, come by the wheelie bins behind the Tesco's.
Okay. I thought they'd shut all the Tesco's down over there.
Oh, I didn't specify which Tesco's.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's it then. All right, thanks very much, and listen to us next time. Goodbye.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Goodbye.